All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining the Wicked Title folks. I'm Cheryl Evans with Cheryl.wTf, and I've got with me today Burton Kelso, who is a technology expert and the owner and chief tech expert at Integral. And I'll be sure to put all of his contact information in the description. And I'd like to thank our sponsor today, the Wicked Title Forum. And today we're going to be talking about tech resolutions that everyone should make in 2023. So Burton, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me, Cheryl, and thanks for getting my name and my company name right, because a lot of times people really jack that up.
Well, good. I'm so glad.
You just rolled it out. I was like, wow, you understood the assignment.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I practiced, so.
Good.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about kind of what you do before we get into our topic today, and tell me a little bit more about Integral.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So I do so much, but at the core, I'm the chief tech expert at Integral, which is a tech support company, which runs much the same lines as Geek Squad. We do on-site computer repair as well as remote computer support for homes and businesses across the country. And we also do managed services where we monitor homes and business computers to make sure that failures don't occur and to make sure that the cyber criminals don't creep their way into their networks and into their computers and devices. I'm also
That's a big deal these days.
It is. I'm also a national speaker, talking on a variety of topics, which include social media, cybersecurity, and just general well-being. So, and then I know there's more. I'm also a regular guest tech expert on multiple television shows across the nation and internationally. So I'll just leave it at that because there's more.
Well, that's fantastic. So anybody who's watching, if you need help with your computers or for monitoring against cyber attacks, Burton is your man. Or if you need someone to speak at your event, also the person to call. So that's fantastic. Cybersecurity and tech issues, always a big hot topic within the title industry. So what recommendations do you have for us for the coming year?
Well, one of the first things I always have to recommend when we talk about tech resolutions is just the simple fact that many people don't pay attention to their technology and devices. I mean, I think most people just kind of go along floating thinking that, oh, it's not going to happen to me as far as lost password or stolen password, or even device failure, which people tend to neglect. I mean, our tech devices are a little bit more not secure, but sturdy and well built than they were even as little as 5 years ago. But you always have to be cognizant that there can be a tech incident anytime. I mean, you could drop your phone in the toilet. Obviously, you could become a victim of a data breach. Also, you can have your smartphone commandeered and taken over by cyber criminals. So it's important that at least every year that you go and review certain things that you need to make resolutions on. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is getting serious about cybersecurity, which everyone talks about it. But to be honest with you, there are so many people that are in the dark when it comes to cybersecurity, as far as the different threats that are out there. You've got ransomware, you've got credential stuffing, but the main threat out there are phishing attacks, which come in a variety of forms. You've got email phishing, you've got voicemail phishing, and you also have text message phishing. And so there's different ways that cyber criminals will get access to your stuff. And one of the things that people don't realize when it comes to cybercrime, Cheryl, it's a human problem, because most criminals can't get into your tech devices. And in fact, it's estimated that about 99% of all cyber attacks require some form of user interaction even before the attack occurs. So that requires you to give out your information, or to click on that link, or to visit that questionable website. And if you avoid all those things, then all your devices are perfectly safe. So it's important that you embrace what you need to do to protect yourself as far as all of the cyber threats out there.
Absolutely. And that's definitely very much an education aspect. I mean, I know just personally, I've had quite a few emails come in the last couple of weeks that other title companies' email addresses have been spoofed. And so I'm getting emails that very much look like, your closing package is ready for download. Go click on it. And that's something I'd never seen before, but oh my goodness, how alarming is that? They look really legitimate. And, only because I wasn't expecting to get a title package, a closing package, that it really caught my attention. I'm like, oh, I should not click on this. And in fact, I went and looked up the title company and called them and said, I got this email. And they're like, oh yeah, we've been having a problem.
That's unfortunate, but I think if you're in the real estate industry, you have to understand that there's a lot of money to be gained in the real estate industry. You're not only talking about residential real estate, but you're also talking about commercial real estate. And there's a lot of money going back and forth electronically with those transactions. So if you're a criminal, you can definitely come in the middle and intercept those transactions, or you can start your own fraud email or text message and spoof either a real estate agent, mortgage company, any real estate entity, and you can steal a lot of money.
Yeah, you really can. There's a lot at stake. So aside from educating ourselves on, what to click on or not click on, what else should we be doing to keep ourselves safe?
Well, one of the things that needs to change in 2023 as far as cybersecurity is just your general password protection. Most people use just your standard password, but people need to get into the habit of using passphrases, which essentially are two words put together that make a secure password. So for example, and I always use this instance, and I pray to God no one uses this passphrase, but I always use the passphrase stinky chicken, just to kind of give an idea of what makes a good passphrase. You could use pink microphone, or pink tea, or you could use like, no, I almost said blue elephant, but you could use like fuzzy Camaro. But those are example of things that make a good passphrase because they're unrelated and they're words that people aren't going to really equate to you when it comes to a password. Because when we create passwords, we're normally using phrases and words that have to deal with our personal lives, which we're sharing on social media. So it's not hard for a cyber criminal to case your social media account and kind of figure out what your passwords would be. And if you're using or having problems coming up with a good passphrase, there's a website you can visit called useapassphrase.com, which will allow you to pick from the selected passphrases that they have, and then you can just use your own. Because the website will throw up 4 words, and then you can choose 2 of the 4 words out as your passphrase.
That's a great idea. I saw a YouTube video recently, which was really pretty hilarious and had it right on the nose. And it was talking about the evolution of passwords. And so, anybody who's over the age of 30 at any rate is probably going to relate to this. But it talked about how, when we first started having to create passwords for things, we only needed 4 letters. Didn't need any capitals or numbers or anything else. And then they said, well, 4 is not enough. You've got to have uppercase and lowercase. And so people capitalized the first letter of the word they were using. And, then they said, oh, well, you have to have letters and numbers. And so you've got this word with a capital letter at the front and you threw a number on the back. And then they came back to us and said, well, now you need to have a special character too. And so now you had this word with a capital letter at the front and a number at the back and a special character after that. And it was usually either the exclamation point or the @ sign because they're at the beginning of the list of characters. So I bet I just called a few people out. Their
Right.
standard formatting for passwords. And so, that is a culturally predictable thing that people really need to consider, switching that up a bit because, if somebody can guess, then you really aren't secure at all.
Right. Hey, can I screen share real quick and show the
Yeah,
website?
absolutely.
Let's see if I can find it. There we go. Yeah, so there's the website, useapassphrase.com. Can you see it, Cheryl?
Yeah. Yep.
Good. So here's an example. So they've got purposely on screen Hanky Senator. So I think Hanky Senator would be a good one, or
Yeah.
purposely Senator. But as you can see with the 4 words, it's going to take about 80 million or 80, what's it, 80 million centuries to guess that
Wow.
passphrase. So that kind of gives you an idea how secure they are. And this
Yeah,
is a great website where you can go and choose at least 2 of those words to create a secure passphrase.
that's fantastic. I love that. So what else do you have for us?
Oh gosh, a lot. So a couple of more on the cybersecurity, and then there's more that we need to go on. So as far as cybersecurity, you need to be aware if you've been a victim of a large scale data breach. And the way to do that is a website called haveibeenpwned.com. And that one I definitely will have to show because it's hard to spell. So give me a second here and I'll explain how this website works. So haveibeenpwned.com is a website that allows you to put in your email address and your phone number to find out if it's floating around on the dark web. Now, the purpose of putting in your email address is most of your online accounts are you use your email address to log in. So if your email is floating around on the dark web, it means criminals can find out what your email address is. They can try to use it to log into your online accounts. And it's obviously not a good thing. Now, as far as it wanting to know your phone number at haveibeenpwned.com, that's more along the lines of, and I hate to say this because a lot of professionals use this in the real estate industry, of your phone number being exposed, and criminals can either use that phone number to spoof spam calls to other people, or they can actually take your cell phone number and commit what's called SIM card fraud, steal your number, and then you no longer have access to it. So, I mean,
Oh,
it's a pretty dangerous thing nowadays to give out your mobile phone number. And just to make sure that it's not floating on the dark web, a website like Have I Been Pwned is excellent as far as making sure that your information isn't floating out there on the dark web. Now, if you type in your phone number or your email address and you've been pwned, then you definitely want to go and change that password that is associated with that email address. And I'll give you an
right.
example of how it works. So there's our old Yahoo email address from years past, and it says, "Oh no, you've been pwned," and it basically tells you where that data breach occurred. So this was back in 2017, and I let you know what information was compromised, email addresses and passwords. So it gives you the information that you need so that you can make intelligent choices as far as as far as your email address is concerned. Now, as far as
Nice.
phone numbers, uh, I got to type in the business number. I almost put my cell phone number out there, but what you want is to show this: good news, no pwnage found. So that means that your information isn't floating around on the dark web. And you should check this site probably at least once a year to make sure that you don't have any information that's loose on the web.
Nice. So, do you have a recommendation? You did mention your realtors, especially, they do put their phone number out there a lot. They need to for business. Is there a safe way for them to put their phone number out there and it not get stolen?
You would have to, as a real estate agent, you would need to either use one of the, or I should say real estate professional, you would need to use either one of the free services like Google Voice or WhatsApp and make that your main public number and only share your smartphone number with close family and friends. The other thing would be to sign up for a paid service like Ring Central or Vonage as your real estate number. That way it puts you it doesn't put you at risk for having that number spoofed, because it seems like criminals want cell phone numbers as opposed to landline numbers or voice
Right.
over IP numbers. So that would be the smartest thing to do. And I know there are a lot of real estate professionals out there that are or have used their mobile number for years, but we all know, Cheryl, that there are agents and professionals that have multiple numbers listed. So why not include that new number and then phase out your mobile number so that way people can know, the correct number to connect you with.
That makes a lot of sense. And I've used voice over IP before. So for anyone who's not familiar with it, when you have a voice over IP phone number, you have an app on your phone. And so the calls do actually ring through to your cell phone. You can answer them from the cell phone. You can get your voicemails on the cell phone. You can oftentimes send text messages through that number. So, it really does offer all of the same functionality that you are used to and expect and need by giving somebody your cell phone number. Just gives you that extra protection. So, it really does tick all the boxes for what you're going to need day to day in order to function.
You got it. And one of the things that we probably both need to explain about voice over IP, when you have voice over IP service, obviously there's an app, shouldn't say obviously, but there's an app installed on your phone. When you make outgoing calls, you call through the app as opposed to just dialing the phone number. And that way your number is protected by the caller ID that's generated from the app.
Yeah. And so then it connects too, if the person who called you originally had that voice over IP phone number, then you certainly want to be calling them back from the same number. So it shows up in their contacts and they actually answer your call.
That's right. I love it. They actually answer your call. I love it.
A lot of people don't. If they don't know that number, it's not in their contacts, they do not answer.
Well, I think that's a good thing why we have voicemail, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the sole purpose. I mean, and
Yep.
speaking of incoming calls, let's say that you're a real estate professional, you're receiving a ton of spam calls. What can you do about that? Really nothing if it's on the dark web. But what you can do is to set up an encouraging voicemail message, allowing people to know that maybe you're busy and that you will call them back. And you've got to convey that in your voicemail. So if you're having issues, just let it go to voicemail. You don't have to answer it all the time, especially if it's an unknown.
That's a great point. I hear that a lot from title agents also. The phone calls interrupt them in the midst of working on a file, and it becomes very disruptive sometimes, and it makes it really easy to make a mistake when you're deep in thought working through a problem and then you've got to stop and answer the phone. So, it is okay for anybody who needs that permission. It is okay to let it go to voicemail and call them back when you're done.
That's right. I mean, that's what it's there for. So,
Yeah,
but make it
absolutely.
inviting so that people will feel inclined to leave a voicemail message.
Absolutely. And even leave alternative information so that they can send you an email or send you a fax or a text message as well. Because sometimes they don't actually need to talk to you. They just need to send you information.
Right. So I think this is a good time for us to talk about mobile device protection as far as a tech resolution for the next year. So
Yeah.
one of the things other than not giving out your cell phone number is to make sure that you are backing up your mobile devices. And I'm not necessarily talking about smartphones or tablets, but laptops too, because a lot of real estate professionals work on their laptops. And the best way
Yeah.
to back up your stuff is to the cloud. Because I know back in the old days, people would bring out that external hard drive,
Oh,
hook it
yeah.
up to their laptop. No one's
And
going
you
to do
always
that
forget.
nowadays.
And you're
Exactly.
too
See, you got it.
busy. I've had multiple hard drive failures over the years. And boy, I am so grateful for cloud storage. Everything I do, every file I open and edit, everything is backed up to the cloud immediately. So I never have to worry again about, losing access should something happen to any of my devices. And the other upside is I can access that information from any device.
That's right. You're on it. The one of the things I was going to mention too is we had a customer call. They had a fairly new laptop and the thing just quit. And of course, they're like, well, can you retrieve the information off of it? But folks, I'm here to tell you, data recovery, number one, it ain't easy. Number two, it ain't cheap. We're
Yeah.
talking thousands of dollars to retrieve information. And if you have a solid state device, which is in most laptops and in smartphones, it's virtually impossible. So back your stuff up because there's no quick way that you can retrieve that information.
I'm also going to point out, a lot of people really, really struggled when everything got locked down in 2020. And I think one of the reasons there was so much struggle is because people weren't making good use of cloud storage and accessibility. And so all of a sudden they're trying to work from home, but they have things stored on the hard drive of the computer that's at the office, or God forbid on paper. And so, making really good use of cloud storage also means that you've got some disaster recovery options going on there. In the case of, both equipment failure as well as the inability to access that equipment.
Right, exactly. One of the other things we should talk about too, as far as security, is data encryption on mobile devices. So when you've got a smartphone, it's easy. You just need to put that password or that facial recognition on both your iPhone or your Android. But sure, a lot of people don't think about their laptops. So if you've got a Windows or Macintosh laptop, you have the ability to encrypt or to scramble that data. So if someone steals your phone or your computers, then that information is encrypted. So if you've got, if you're a real estate professional, you've got buyer seller data on your device, you don't want that getting out, because you don't want to be that agent who has to say, I suffered a data breach, because it's estimated if you suffer a data breach or a cyber incident, you're going to be out of business in 6 months. So
yeah, that's a really good point. And I don't know if this is one that you were going to touch on, but also throw out there the fact that having some cyber fraud insurance is not a bad idea either.
no, it's not. You selling
And
any?
I am not, although that might be a really good guest to have on another show, because that is a whole education in and of itself to understand the coverages and how to know if you're getting something good. So I'll make myself a note of that one. We'll come back to it.
Exactly. Now, as far as encryption is concerned, there are two tools that you can use for your Windows and your Mac. If you're a Windows user, you can use BitLocker, which is built in. And same thing with your Mac, you can use FileVault, which is built into your Mac. So there's really no excuse not to encrypt or to scramble that data on your device. So if it's stolen, then criminals won't be able to get access to that information at all. Now, I was going to ask you this, since we're talking about mobile security, how do you feel about using Wi-Fi when you're out and about with your laptop or your phone? Free Wi-Fi, I should throw it out there. Free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's a great question. There are certainly been occasions where, I've been staying in a hotel, for example, and, if I'm there for a few days, I really do need to get on the computer and access things and get some work done. And I've always kind of wondered, is this safe to do? So you tell me, is that safe to do?
You're going to laugh. I know a lot of cybersecurity experts will say, don't do it. But I'm like, as long as you verify that you're on the right Wi-Fi network, then you should be in good shape, because most of the major hotels have set it up so that when you connect to Wi-Fi, it's your own private separate connection. Now, keep in mind, if you're going to use sensitive information, you might want to hop on your mobile hotspot, which is the most secure, because it's just a direct connection between your device and your cellular company. And if criminals were going to try to access that information, they'd have to break into the big three: T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T. But for as long as you confirm, then I think you're in good shape. I mean, now airports, it's kind of hard to do. If you're staying like at a Airbnb, I don't know if I would necessarily use the free Wi-Fi at the free Airbnb, because true story, years ago, my wife and I were able to look at the recipes of the B&B because they had a shared network, and all of a sudden their computer popped up and I got curious and said, oh, what do they have on here? And so, all recipes. So we had to tell them later, you need to set up a guest network so you don't have guests stealing information.
With so many people now working from home, where it wasn't quite as common as it used to be, that's something else for people to consider, is the security of their home network. If you're connecting your work devices to your home network, but then sometimes you have other people over, or, maybe a more realistic example, because we'd all like to think that nobody we know personally would be a thief. But, it's not uncommon that maybe you have a service professional come in to service appliances or something that's broken. And, you don't know that person, but they may need to access Wi-Fi in order to you finish a work order or what have you, sometimes, especially if you have bad cell service in the area. And so having a guest network set up on your home Wi-Fi network is probably also a really good idea.
You must have just had service done at the home, bringing that up. That is an interesting point, but that's
actually my husband does appliance repair for a living, and now he would never ever steal anybody's information. But I am familiar with the day-to-day life of going in and out of people's homes through his stories.
Oh, that's too funny. One of the things I was going to recommend from a service aspect, which would be a good resolution, would be watch what happens if you have to send in your device for repair. A lot of instances, if you have an in-warranty repair, or if you have a service professional come out, how do you know that they're not going to go snoop? And,
I've heard horror stories about that. People with illicit photos on their devices, and suddenly those photos are out on the web, and they trace it back to a service computer service person. So
Yeah, I mean that you
certainly,
yeah, you really have to be careful on that because I mean you really need to vet your IT professionals, which people don't do. And
yeah,
since the IT industry is so unregulated, even though you may have a good recommended IT professional, how do you know that they're not snooping around and stealing your data? So my suggestion
yeah,
would be if you were to have service, it's probably better to have someone come on site rather than you drop it off at a location. And then as
yeah.
boring as it is, you probably need to be in the same room as the professional when you're working on your tech devices. Now, obviously, as the
That's a great
relationship
idea.
betters, then you know that they're not going to snoop. But I would say on that first instance, you never know where data breaches are going to occur, and you never know
Right.
how people are making their side hustle. So, beware of
Absolutely.
those service calls.
And, develop a relationship with your local computer service person before you have an emergency. That's, worth shopping around, doing your research, talk to them, ask them some questions. And that way, when you have an emergency, you already have that number to dial.
That's excellent advice because when it comes to most service incidents, people just call whoever pops up first on Google. And
Yeah.
just from a service aspect, I know in our area, there's a plumbing company that advertises heavy. Do a pretty decent job on social media, but if you read their Google reviews, they're just horrible. But if you were to
Yeah.
Google them, you would probably contact them because I think in our minds, if someone pops up first on Google, then they're trustworthy. And that's
Yeah.
not always the case.
Yeah, that's a great point. And when you're panicking, you're in an emergency, your computer won't turn on, you're not really in the right state of mind to vet somebody. And maybe you're not even on the right device to vet somebody. You're trying to do it from your phone because the computer won't turn on, or you've dropped the phone in the toilet and now you're using somebody else's phone, or who knows. So yeah, definitely want to do your research ahead of time and have that all lined up and know who to call. Just like, in years past when we used to have the landlines and you had that list of emergency phone numbers pinned to the wall next to the phone. That's what you need.
I agree completely, Cheryl. I agree completely. Because I mean, you never know when
Yeah,
you never know who you're dealing with. So get those phone.
absolutely. And if you don't have all those contacts backed up to the cloud, then you literally should have that piece of paper because when the phone's not working, how are you going to know who to call?
Right. Hey, one thing I was going to throw out there as far as using public Wi-Fi, my suggestion would be if you're in a pinch, go to your local library. Because if you think about it, it's not hacker haven. And most of the
Yeah.
people that are using computers at the library are using the library's computers. Very few are using Wi-Fi. And most libraries, at least in our area, have pretty decent Wi-Fi. So you can go there safe
Yeah.
and sound, use it, and have peace of mind.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Probably more secure than your local coffee shop, if nothing else, because there's just fewer people.
Right, exactly. Exactly. I like that.
Yeah. Although I have found libraries are not as quiet as they used to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're not. I had I was selling a house a couple years ago, and so I work from home most of the time, so found myself having to leave the house during the day constantly for showings, and needed to find somewhere that I could work. And I'm like, oh, the library would be nice and quiet. There's some Wi-Fi. I can get my work done. No, not nice and quiet.
Oh, really? You have kids
Yeah.
running back and forth and acting crazy?
Yeah, and even just the people, mulling about, they just weren't whispering, and maybe it was that particular library, but I was a bit surprised.
Yeah, so Cheryl, you should probably add to your list a list of libraries that you can go to, like your emergency list. Like, well, I know
Yeah,
not to go here. I can go to this library because it's going to be a little bit more quiet and secure.
yeah, absolutely. Although, I suppose on the upside, there were plenty of people, because I've certainly heard plenty of stories where libraries just don't have people coming in anymore, and that's always sad.
That is kind of sad. But hey, they got free Wi-Fi, so might as well take
Yep,
advantage of it, right?
absolutely. So do you have more tips for us?
Of course. Yeah, so let's talk about getting busy on social media. And well, yeah, I mean that's a resolution. You do a good job on you do a good job on Instagram. I love your
Oh,
Instagram.
well, thank you.
And just so you know, Cheryl's on Instagram, LinkedIn. You're on Facebook too, right?
Yes, I am.
But
Yep.
not Twitter.
No, not Twitter. I just don't quite get Twitter. So yeah, I haven't really mastered that one, but yeah, I'm on
You're on
Facebook,
TikTok too,
Instagram,
aren't you?
LinkedIn. A little bit on TikTok. I'm still working on mastering that
Whatever.
video
You
thing.
have an account on TikTok, and
Yeah,
that's all
it's a
that
start.
matters for right now.
Yep, yep,
What,
it's a start.
so one of the things that people need to get busy on social media in the new year is, number one, because of this era of cybercrime that we're in, you've got to claim your social media account on every platform out there. The reason being is that you may have a good brand on Facebook, but maybe you're not on TikTok or LinkedIn or even or Insta. Criminals can nab your profile details, create a profile as you on another platform, and use that to lure in a new audience. And if you claim it, then it lessens the chances that they can ruin your brand that you've established on one platform on another platform. So if
Wow,
you,
that's one I've never thought of before, but that's
yeah,
a really good point. So even if you're not going to use the account, just create it and, claim the name for it. That's what
not
you're
only
saying.
for yourself, but also if you, whatever title, mortgage, brokerage, create it. You've got to put it out there because you may have a good business brand, and all social media accounts have the option to set up a business account.
Yeah,
So you've got to claim it.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
they say on social media, claim it.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. And YouTube actually just a couple weeks ago rolled out handles for accounts, and so that's one that there wasn't something to claim previously,
Right.
and there is now. So for anyone who didn't know, add that to your list of things to claim.
Absolutely. And I always forget about YouTube being a social media platform. But I hate to say this, even though if you're not active in video, yeah, you've got to claim, I would say, a YouTube channel, because
Yeah,
obviously it's kind of easy to duplicate YouTube channels, but at least set up one in your name so that there is a difference between, say, your YouTube channel versus ones that a criminal can take advantage of, and they may not take advantage of if you already have your own YouTube channel. So I would claim them all.
yeah, I think that's really great advice. And I'll also throw out there the fact that you really should be trying to be consistent across all of the social media platforms with your naming convention. So anybody who's listening, who's thinking about starting a new business, especially, make sure before you register that business name that you have gone and searched all the social media platforms, searched Google to see what's going to come up when somebody Googles that name, and what would that handle be that you're going to claim on those social media, and make sure it's available everywhere, because you don't want to have ABC real estate on one and ABC real estate 456 on another. The inconsistency makes it a lot harder for people to find you. So to be consistent across all of them with your naming convention can be really important.
Right. The other reason you want to get busy on social media too, because well, I think you brought up the point of cross posting. So let's talk about that. And then we can go on to little other details. But yeah, cross posting on social media is very important because social media is, in this environment, is volatile, as in we don't know which platform is going to be around from the next, from today to the next day. I mean, look at
Yeah.
Twitter. Twitter is just nuts now. And
Yeah.
with Facebook just shutting down everything, I wound up in Facebook jail because of a post I made 2 years prior to me being in Facebook jail. And
Yeah.
our company domain, callintegralnow.com, is banned on Facebook. So anytime someone says, hey, post your domain name, Facebook sees it as spam, which is crazy.
Oh
You know?
yeah, and you never know what the rules are, so you don't know if you're breaking them. I had a friend who ended up in Facebook jail the other day because they had shared the URL for a charity 2 years ago, and now that charity is in Facebook jail, and so Facebook was flagging every link to that domain that anybody had ever posted. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, it can be really, really crazy. And then I've heard of, people who have really big followings, and their account gets shut down and they can't get it reinstated. And now they've lost that following. And at least if, you've got that following and some of it at least overlaps on different platforms. If you have to move to a different platform, you can at least be putting those announcements out to let people know. But yeah, it's really tough because you're not in control when you're on these social media platforms.
That's right. I think the only one right now that's really lax as far as sharing your information to the whole world is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
LinkedIn's algorithm is very benevolent as far as, letting your friends see your post. I know when you go live on LinkedIn, heck, it shares to all your connections. Um, and LinkedIn will reshare old posts if they think it's relevant. Because I know some people
Yeah.
will freak out. Well, why are people liking this post that I made 3 weeks ago? It's like, well, because they have humans monitoring the post on LinkedIn, and they'll see relevant content and then they'll just share it again. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
It is.
really.
It's much more generous than Facebook, especially with Facebook's algorithm changes they put in this past summer, where they're not prioritizing people within your connections, your friends list, or for your business page, people who have followed it. They've adopted the same kind of algorithms that TikTok uses, and it's really trying to get you to see new content from other places, and not necessarily the ones that you've asked for. So yeah, it could be a real challenge to get in front of the right people at the right time.
The final thing I was going to mention about being active on social media is that you really have to think of it as your second CRM, because we're all familiar with our CRM where you've got access to people's names when you've contacted them. Social media is not going to offer that, but what it will do is it allows you to continually stay in contact with people, because when people make a career change, what's the first thing they're going to make updates to? And that's their
Yeah.
social media platforms,
Yeah.
especially on LinkedIn. So if you are wanting to stay in front of people, you've got to connect with them on social, because if you just do it with an email address or even a physical address, they're going to move or change careers at some point, and then you've lost a connection that you can
Yeah.
probably never get again. So I would contact on both.
That's a really great suggestion as well. Yeah. Because when it's a business email address, the second they change jobs, and now you've lost that. That phone number may not be good either, because it could have been a business phone number, a business cell phone.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe they got rid of that mobile number because they decided to use voice over IP, or
Yep,
decided to use Google Voice or WhatsApp.
absolutely. One of my favorite sayings when talking to people about social media marketing, is tell your friends, tell them a lot, make it weird.
I love it.
Because
I love
people
it.
worry about saying the same thing in more than one place, that people are going to get bored or annoyed. But the fact of the matter is, very few people actually see your post compared to how many people you're connected to.
That is
Um,
that is right.
and so you really do have to say it a lot in order
Mhm.
for people to really see it and to remember it.
And the other thing people need to understand too with social media is that people don't buy products or businesses. People buy people. It's your
Yes.
personality that's your business card is your personality and your smile. And people
Yeah.
want to connect with people. So it's important that you do have a presence on social media. And I will bring up this because there, there are a bunch of social media experts out there. And to be honest, there's really no right way to do social media other than to just show up. I mean, it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be video. You don't have to be doing TikTok dances or coming up with these awesome reels. Just show up. I mean, a photo, a selfie, an inspirational quote that you liberated from another website, share it,
Yeah.
because that definitely lets people know that you're around. And that's what you want. You want people to know that I'm here and let's build a relationship together. And
Yeah.
one other thing I would add is always share helpful content that's going to better the lives of your connections. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be industry related. It can be, hey, here's a great recipe for cornbread stuffing, or if you want a
Yep.
juicier turkey, this is what you want to do. Or if you're doing prime rib for Christmas, these are some awesome tips.
Yeah, absolutely. Just add value, and authenticity in marketing is, a huge topic for me right now. I've recently rebranded and really put an aim towards authenticity in my branding, and the difference has been absolutely out of this world. The response that I've gotten, from people with my marketing since I've gotten a little weird and been a little more me, it's actually been incredibly positive. So for anybody out there who's like, oh, I don't know if I could put myself out there like that, do it. Do it.
Right.
It'll be okay.
Yeah, I like that. That is excellent advice. I like that. Do it. It'll be okay.
Yeah, it really will. I mean, haters are going to hate, and there's a plenty of them out there, but the people who care, they care. And so they're not going to be horrible to you, just be a person. That's all anybody really wants.
Exactly. So have you thought about some of the hidden threats that can take advantage of you throughout the year, like as far as your technology is concerned? And I don't think people think about things such as theft, of your tech devices.
Yeah.
Have you heard of shoulder surfing at all?
I would assume that'd be somebody looking over your shoulder while you're in a public space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of my resolutions would be you've got to be aware of some of these unknown threats. Like there are shoulder
Yeah.
surfers out there that are looking at you, enter that PIN number in when you're making that purchase, or if you're sitting in that coffee shop or even the library, there may be somebody behind you just kind of peeping out and seeing what you're doing, so
Yeah,
just
that's a
be aware
really
of
good
that.
point.
One of the
I'm
other, I was
kind of
going to say,
aware of that when I have like a card out in a store, that I try to make sure like I've got a thumb over part of it. But
right,
yeah, there's probably a lot more of that most of us probably never really thought about.
right. Same thing with our Alexa devices. Like I'm sitting next to one right now. I'm surprised it didn't activate, but I better use the word echo. But I mean, these devices actually listen to your conversations, and they record them and store them in the cloud, both Google
Yeah.
Home and your Echo device. So you can go in and change the settings for both Google Home and Alexa, or if you're, there it goes, or if you're working or knowing you're going to be using sensitive information, that you can just be conscious and just unplug those devices when you're working. But real estate professionals don't think about that, so you definitely
Yeah.
need to take that in consideration, along with kids. People don't think about kids and their devices, but kids are the worst. They're
Oh
the
yeah.
worst. You give them your work device. Here's my phone. You can play on my phone. Here's my laptop. Next thing you know, you're infected, or it's dropped, or lost.
Yes.
And you just really have to think about those in the coming year as far as making sure that your devices are safe.
That's a great point. Do you have any others for us?
Two more.
Okay.
Number one is to unsubscribe from those old services, email services. So especially during Cyber Monday, Cyber Friday, well, no, Cyber Monday, Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, you've probably gotten a ton of emails from people advertising their specials and sales. What a great time to unsubscribe from those lists that you didn't sign up for because they're coming in. Now, some people
Yeah.
will think that you are going to attract more stuff, but you're probably getting more because you've already been in the email queue that's already set to go out. But if you unsubscribe, especially from legitimate companies, they're going to take you off your list. So yeah, get off of those old lists. And then finally, Cheryl, one of the most important things people need to do in the coming year is to take a break from those devices and from your apps, because technology is so addicting, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly is. And yeah, that is a really good point. And my husband actually said something to me over the weekend. He's like, it is okay to be nice to yourself and stop working. And that really is excellent advice.
Yeah. So did it work? Did you stop working, or did you just kind of like turn and like do that? You're like, nope.
No, I did. I did actually stop and we watched a movie. So it was very nice.
Now, did you have your phone on during the movie, or did you like set it down?
No, I sat it down. In fact, a little trick that I've learned is, or well, that he's learned and he does to me. But if he turns on subtitles, I pay more attention.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny.
Yeah. So that's his little hack for me to get me to pay attention to a whole movie. So little ADHD going on here.
Yeah, I know that for some people it can be hard to set their devices down. Like I know there are specific hashtags like self-care Sunday, no cell phone Sunday, and set it down Sunday. So a lot of people will use Sunday as that day to actually unplug from their devices, or you can even unplug at night. Make sure that at a specific time you can set down your device and not touch it. But the new updates for both Android and iPhone allow you to turn on do not disturb, but then you can allow in those apps and those calls that you deem important. So if you've got
Yeah.
family that needs to get in contact with you, you don't have to worry about putting your phone on do not disturb and missing those calls. You can checklist what stuff you don't want to miss. That way it'll kind of help cut down, how connected you are with your technology. But yeah, take a break. It's not important.
And that's a great tip about that do not disturb. Not everybody realizes that you can select certain things that get through. And I'll add another one that I learned just a few weeks ago that I absolutely love. I discovered that I can schedule my outgoing text messages.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that can be a really useful one. Not only that you don't have to try and remember to text somebody at a reasonable hour, you can schedule it, but also if you are trying to put down that technology, but you know that you need to reach out to somebody in a certain time frame, that you could reschedule that so you can walk away from the technology and rest assured that everything else is taking care of itself.
Yeah, speaking of rescheduling, with social media, you can schedule your posts as well. Like I know with Facebook and Insta through Meta, you can go to Creator Studio and schedule your social media posts in advance so you don't have to worry about always coming up with content. And I hear LinkedIn is rolling out a tool that will allow you to schedule your posts. It's only for the desktop. But again, if you're wanting to get active on social media, you definitely want to, you can cut back, but you definitely want to take advantage of those scheduling tools so that you have more time to relax or to do your business without having that pressure of I've got to post.
Yeah, absolutely. YouTube also allows you to schedule.
That's right. Yeah, look at you. I forgot all about that, and I do it every week. Isn't that horrible?
Well, it's because you said you don't think of YouTube as social media, which I get. It's kind of in that weird gray zone, but for a lot of businesses that are using YouTube, it functions in the same way for business purposes. So
I will say this, as far as scheduling tools are concerned for social media, you have to be aware of tools like Sprout Social or Restream.io or even Hootsuite, because the algorithm doesn't like when you schedule from an outside source into the platform. So if all possible, use your native tools to schedule your social media posts because it will get higher engagement.
Yeah, I've seen conflicting information on that one. But my take on it is, well, if you've posted, no matter how you did it, it's better than not posting at all.
I agree. And that's
so while there may be preferred methods and some may work better than others, any post in any method is better than no post at all.
I agree 100% with you, Cheryl. Even though you just brought down well, you can use those tools. Like, come on, I know from experience that you don't get the engagement from it, but you're absolutely right. Because for some people, using a schedule tool like Hootsuite or Sprout Social is the best thing to do because you've got it all right there.
Yeah, exactly. And so, if you're trying to pick and choose, while scheduling that post through the native app might be your best option, you might get the best results, but, getting some results, any results, because you actually made the post is better than having missed the post entirely. So, again, people can be really hard on themselves trying to do everything perfectly. So, it's good to give them permission to not be perfect and still accomplish something. So
I agree.
All right. Well, Burton, this has been fantastic. So much really great information. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully we'll have you back again.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. You